Today on the show, well, we're pretty sure it's another Harry Seldon crisis, so you should tell all of your friends to become patron members of Gom Jabbar. Word on the street is, listen, I'm just reporting what I've heard. It's the only way to avoid catastrophe.
Yeah, I heard from a friend of a friend who saw Harry in the vault with his own eyes.
A vault message, yeah.
A vault message. And Harry straight up was like, patreon.com/GomJabbar.
Yeah,
subscribe.
He said the URL. Yeah. 100,000 patrons, right? It's not enough to shift, it's not enough to avoid catastrophe entirely.
No, not at all. No.
But it will reduce our suffering.
It certainly will. It'll reduce some of the bills that we suffer from. Welcome to Gom Jabbar, your guide to the iconic world of Dune. We'll be exploring the themes, philosophies, and characters found in the sandy depths of this vast universe, from Frank Herbert's groundbreaking novels to the adaptations on film and TV. My name's Abu.
My name is Leo.
That intro is true 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Today is the 1%, folks.
It's actually less than 1%.
That's true. That's true. Less than 1%. Most of what we do is Dune on this show, but we asked patrons what else they'd be interested in hearing on the show. In between book club episodes, we're gearing up, folks, for Heretics of Dune.
Yeah.
You and I have been doing the reading, and we're instantly daunted by that book. More to come on that.
It's so good.
But while we prep for Heretics of Dune, which will begin in June 2024, we took a little diversion into the incredible Foundation by Isaac Asimov. We've already talked about the first half of the book, so go back and catch up before you listen today. Today's episode, we will be talking about the second half of the book and completing it, book club fashion.
Indeed we will. Now, like last episode, although we're talking about Foundation, we are massive Dune nerds. We cannot help but talk about Dune shit. So, spoiler warning, we will be talking about things that happened in the first 4 of Frank's books.
Mm-hmm.
Go listen to those book clubs. Read those
books.
Right. They're so good.
We've covered them chapter by chapter.
We have indeed.
Now, of course, a huge shout out to our Kwisatz Haderach level patrons at the top of the show here. Case Aiken, Daniel, Dion, Roman Caballo, Jonathan Lambert, and C.R. Spruill. Say that 5 times fast. No, I'm not going to do that.
Not going to do that. Yeah.
But what I will say is thank you. Thank you so much for helping us avoid our own Seldon crises week after week as the bills pile up, as we pour our hearts and souls into this show. It does not get made, and it does not continue to happen without support from our patrons at all levels. And so our thank you not only extends to our Kwisatz Haderach level patrons, but to everyone who supports us in any way they can. It makes a huge difference, and we thank you.
Makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. Now, today's episode, we are going to, like last time, start with a summary of the reading today. Then we're going to dive a little deeper into some bigger themes and ideas. And then finally, we'll share our favorite moments from the book and look back on this great little journey that we've taken between God Emperor and Heretics.
That's right.
But before we do that, we're going to take a tiny, quick, minuscule, eensy-beensy little break. Don't go anywhere. Episode hasn't started yet. That'd be dumb. Come back right after this.
Welcome back, folks. Let's dive right into our part summaries for the second half of this book. So part 4 begins with our introduction to Limar Ponyetz, who is a resourceful and devious master trader who is working within the Foundation's commercial network. Now, Ponyetz, at the start of this chapter, receives a hand-delivered message from a fellow trader, and the message carries a highly classified mission for Ponyetz.
Yeah.
The mission, if he chooses to accept it, is to save his old colleague named Eskel Gorov, who's been taken prisoner on the planet Askane.
I'm so glad I'm not the only one who got Mission Impossible vibes. The fact that the fucking wire started like burning as he's reading it.
Right.
I was like, this is so cool.
Right. Lamar Panyetz is Tom Cruise. 100%.
Clearly. Oh, so good.
Now, this mission is particularly important, mind you, because although Gorov went to Askane under the guise of being a traitor, Panyetz knows the truth. Gorov is actually a secret agent of the Foundation.
Oh my gosh.
And his secret mission in the Asconian system is to try and crack this lockdown on trade with the Foundation. So the Asconians aren't trading with Foundation. They don't have those nucleic devices. And thus Foundation can't exert its religious and nuclear power and control on this system. And that's risky, right? You have a potentially rebel system here that could spell doom for the Foundation's future. So Gorov is here in an attempt to fix that, but he's been captured.
Right. So Panyetz sets off. He's like, fuck it. Okay, I'm behind on quota. I have to make these sales, but whatever. I got to help out Gorov. So 2 grueling weeks of bureaucratic bullshit later.
Incredible.
Panyetz is finally meeting with the Grand Master, and the meeting is tense. There's no other word for it. The Grand Master is literally like, gas chamber Gorov. We're going to put him in the gas chamber. We're going to kill him.
Yep.
And Panyetz is like, whoa, man. You're being so fucking unreasonable about this. And he senses that the Grand Master is somehow a deeply religious, and so he kind of shoots in the dark a bit. He has some church training from his youth, and he goes, you know what? How about this? Sure, you'll kill him. You'll make your decision. I need to help him guide his soul back into the loving arms of the galactic spirit.
That's right.
And the Grand Master is like, all right, I like that. Yeah, for sure.
Right. You wouldn't condemn a man to death before his soul has been saved.
No, that is beyond vile. We're not talking matters of the flesh. We're talking matters of the soul.
Indeed.
Fucking bullshit. But it works. It fucking works. Playing off of this religious mindset of the Asconians, which is very, very cool. And this actually awards him some private time with Gorov.
Yeah.
And his time with Gorov is good. He gets to catch up with his old buddy. But bad news, Gorov is like, yo, if I get out of here, I do have to just come right back and actually sell something to them, because that's what my mission is. And if I die, I die. Like that, it sucks, but here I am.
Right.
Panyetz senses another solution. He's like, Gorov, you kind of suck as a salesperson. Gonna be honest. I'm much better as a salesperson than you are.
Right. Master trader.
It's
trader on the here. Business card.
MT. It's on my name badge. So you give me some information, I'll make the sale. Like, I will make this happen. And Gorov gives him the information he needs. They covet gold. So Panyetz is like, all right, I'm going to 2 birds with 1 atomic stone. I'll make my quota, my sales quota somehow, and I will also, crack this lockdown of trading.
That's right. So a week later, Panyetz gives a presentation to the Asconian leadership. He threw together a little device to show them. Just a bit of duct tape, threw a wrench in there.
Elbow grease,
a lot of WD-40. And it's working. It's working excellently. What this device does is it transmutes iron into gold.
Yeah.
I
was like, what the fuck? Casual? Like, it's got to be bullshit, right? And
right.
It's not. It just is a working transmuter that he made out of a fucking food processor or something.
Right.
Fucking crazy.
Absolutely crazy. And I think it illustrates how the Foundation is literally working on a different plane than their surrounding systems, Like the Foundation, their technology is just on a whole different level, to the point where someone on Askane can look at this transmutation device and be like, what the fuck? This is magic.
It's also a quiet reminder that we as the reader are not even being let into the full capabilities of Foundation at any given moment.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the Grand Master, understandably, is tempted. He's real tempted by this transmutation device, but he is a little bit hesitant.
Right.
He doesn't want to jump in to perhaps this heretical device that would go against God's will, go against the ancestors or whatever his excuse is. So Panyet, being the brilliant salesman that he is, pitches him on a 30-day free trial.
Yeah.
And that's enough. That convinces the council, that convinces the Grand Master to give this thing a go.
Yeah.
Now, this also brilliantly buys Panyet's time to scheme with one of the young up-and-coming counselors that he scoped out, named Furl.
Yeah.
And basically, Panyet goes to Furl, and he convinces Furl to use this device to accumulate enough wealth to become Grandmaster, which is a thing Furl very obviously wants.
Right.
Furl is hesitant, but ultimately buys into the scheme because of his ambition.
I do love the comment with Furl, where Furl's like, what happens if they find impurities in the gold? Or like they find impurities, they believe the ancestors. And he's like, they have such a reason not to find impurities. They are so hungry for gold.
Yeah.
They are not going to find impurities. And Furl's like, God damn, this dude's spitting bars.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
They're going to find what they want in this device, and what they want is to have the device and have unlimited gold.
They want to be validated by the ancient spirits, so mysteriously the ancient spirits will validate that this gold is fine, probably.
Exactly. Panyet's a master of human manipulation.
Yeah.
Now, a few weeks later, Gorov and Panyet are released. And this, here at the end of this chapter, is where Panyet reveals the 5D chess game he's been playing this whole time.
Fucking incredible. Yeah.
He secretly recorded Furl in 8K, baby.
Yeah.
Using that transmuter and being sinful, basically.
Yeah.
In order to blackmail Furl with it.
Yeah. Like, I'll destroy your political career, you young, ambitious person. You have, it's just ultimate leverage over this
What
guy.
will the people of Askane think when they see someone who wants to be their Grand Master using a sinful device, et cetera, And he's got Furl by the balls at this point, and he's basically like, okay, buddy, Furl, I want you to buy all of my atomics at over double their asking price.
Yeah.
And you need to hide it. Because obviously, if you were to reveal this to the public, they would turn against you. Atomics from the Foundation are not allowed on this planet.
Right.
And so, he has, with one master stroke, not only met his quota, he's walked out of there with more cash than he ever expected.
Yeah.
But he has now installed someone who will become Grand Master and will basically have to reduce the restrictions and re-educate the Asconians to accept the nuclear devices that are fucking hidden in his basement.
Just like rotting in his basement. Yeah. Yeah.
And with that, Limar Panyets / Tom Cruise can say mission accomplished, baby.
I was going to say, a little meta note here. I learned that this was published after part 5. So part 4 and part 5 in the magazine were reversed.
Interesting.
But this one wasn't well received, or people didn't like this one. And so for the book version of this story, they decided they wanted to end on a higher note. So they reversed the order. So the merchant princes came after the traders. And some character names were changed, some details were changed, but I thought that was really interesting. But also, I'm like, fuck you all. This is I love this part of the story. It's so fun.
I think what it is that Limar Panyets is standing in the shadow of literal giants, right? We have Harry Seldon, we have Salvor Hardin, and then we're about to talk about Hober Mallow.
Hober Mallow.
Limar Panyets, as great as he is really coming in 4th place.
That's true.
So I think that may have been a reason that people were like, well, this guy isn't exactly Hober, so. And it's kind of a shorter story too, So.
Yeah. It's a good reminder, folks. You can be a fucking excellent person, but if 3 better people show up, on competition day, you're coming in fourth.
That's right.
No matter how hard you work. On that note, part 5, The Merchant Princes.
Yes.
And this introduces us to Hober Mallow.
Oh,
fucking
God.
Chunk of a man. Love this
That's
guy.
right.
He is another master trader who's been given an important mission. Now, atomic-powered ships have been going missing in the Corellian Republic.
Hello.
And Jorain Sutt, secretary to the mayor.
This fucking guy.
And he's the secretary of the mayor of Terminus. This is Foundation.
Yeah.
Orders Mallow to go investigate. Mallow meets with his buddy, Jaim Twir, who basically is suggesting that they put Mallow on the council. But Mallow's like, I can't because I'm busy. I've got this mission. And you know what? This mission might be a ploy to get rid of me because I actually am becoming a little bit too powerful, and maybe I am a threat to Jorain Sutt and the other council members. So maybe this is kind of a ploy. Anyway, come with me. Come on, buddy. Let's go on an adventure. And he kind of throughout this also demonstrates he really believes in himself and his ability to improvise, which we will see demonstrated very often.
I believe in it too after reading this story.
I do too. Dude's fucking awesome. Similar in a lot of ways to Ponyet's in his like, I don't have a set plan, but I will figure it out. Yeah,
exactly. Same kind of smooth talking as well. You know, we're establishing a bit of a through line for master traders in this universe. It's
it's sort of the heart of like politicians and psychology, and like some of these themes are still here.
Exactly.
They understand people. They have to be traders.
Yeah, exactly. Now we rejoin our heroes after a week of basically doing nothing. They have been in the Corellian Republic for a week, and they're killing time. They're playing cards and moping around with not really a plan.
Yeah.
When suddenly a Foundation missionary comes aboard.
Yeah.
He asks for help. He's desperate. He's wounded.
Yeah.
An angry mob also suddenly
appears out of fucking nowhere.
Appears out of thin air outside the ship, demanding to have that Foundation missionary be given back.
You're in the middle of South Dakota and there's a crowd of 200,000 people outside. You're like, that's
how? What?
Too many people.
Did Taylor Swift drive through? What's
Eras
happening?
tour here in South Dakota?
Never. Maybe. Was there one?
I don't know.
Swifties, let us know. So this is, of course, highly suspicious, and all of this is part of a ploy, as we will learn later in the chapter. But Mallow knows that something is up. He senses a setup, and he interviews this Foundation missionary because it's highly suspicious that there even is one on the Corellian Republic planet, on Corellia. Like, they don't allow Foundation missionaries, so why the fuck is this guy here in the first place? Ultimately, Mallow does something that's extremely unpopular with his crew. He decides to give the missionary back to the angry mob to let them do what they will.
Yeah.
He literally has to pull out his gun to keep the crew in line and to make sure his orders are followed. And this leads to an incredible little speech.
I love this
that
so
we
much.
must quote.
Yeah.
Quote, "I don't know what insubordination is. I have never had experience with it. But if there's anyone here who thinks he can teach me, I'd like to teach him my antidote in return." End quote.
It's so good.
This fucking
Bars.
cowboy.
Bars. Oh, it's so good. It also occurs to me, this whole story is framed around the Salvo Hardin saying, "Don't let morals get in the way of doing what's right."
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
This scene, this moment is very much that concept, but don't let like what people expect is wrong get in the way of doing what's right.
Yes.
Because the right thing in this case is to not fall for the trap and to abide by the law to the letter and to do the unpopular thing. That is the right move. And he proves that it's the right move down in the end. But it's like, this is very clearly a guiding principle for him, which is also very satisfying to see it kind of happening, that epigraph that happens at the beginning of the chapter. It's fun to see that sprinkled throughout as well.
Yeah, definitely. Such a great catch there. Such a great point. And like you said, ultimately, this is the correct decision. I mean, a mere 30 minutes later,
yeah.
the crew gets an invitation to meet with Commodore Asper, who is the leader of Coral. This all but confirms Mallow's suspicions that this whole Foundation missionary thing was a test of some sort, and he has passed the test by giving the missionary back to the Corellians.
It is suspicious timing. A week
Very
of radio
suspicious
silence.
timing, yeah.
You like don't do this like weird thing that happens, and then like 20 minutes later you get a text, "Yo, babe, you up?" You're like, okay, well.
Interesting.
So Mallow meets with Commodore Asper and gets to the heart of his complaints. Like, why aren't you trading? And Asper actually brings up Ascone, right? The place that we just read about with Panyets. Since Ascone, or Ascone, or however we're saying it, civilizations outside of Foundation's control are like, fuck that. Yeah. We look at Ascone and we see that they let just a trader in and they let him talk and do his thing. And now they're all now Ascone's like under the thumb of Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Now Mallow's like, yo, fair. Fuck that trick. I don't like that. And he dispels some of his concern this way with this another great speech.
Oh, so
Quote,
good.
"Money is my religion. All this mysticism and hocus pocus of the missionaries annoys me, and I'm glad you refuse to countenance it." End quote.
Incredible. Money is my religion.
Money is my religion.
Every Wall Street bro, rock hard.
Just
reading
fully
this
erect.
chapter.
Just, me too, bro. Me too. He's on that hashtag grind. He wakes up at 4 a.m. Meditates for an hour. So Mallow's pitch is very simple. He's going to sell Commodore Asper atomic bits and baubles that like are atomics, but they don't require any kind of priestly involvement. No religious involvement at all. They're just cool. Like some of them are fun, like the necklace that bursts into beautiful flames and like makes you all fancy looking. Some of them are super practical, like atomic knives and cutters that make their steel plants that much more efficient. And this will make Commodore Asper, super, super wealthy, as well as super, super popular. And also, Corellian society is going to get used to a much higher standard of living.
Yes.
You got cool jewelry.
Goodness.
You got cool, we all have, this is the first time I'm living in an apartment with a cordless vacuum cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking game changing. I don't have to unplug and replug every few. It's like the most incredible thing.
Yes.
If I was in a war of attrition with some other household and they took away my cordless vacuum cleaner, I too would give up eventually.
Game over.
Just
over. Roll over and die. Honestly,
I have to plug in again.
Take my Dyson from my cold, dead hands.
Cold, dead, dusty hands. Yeah.
Dusty hands. My God. Yeah.
So just like my Dyson, the Corellian society will get used to this much higher standard of living built upon efficient factories that are outputting 10 times as much for half the cost.
Incredible.
So society...
The
margins. Think of the margins. I wake up at 4 a.m. and I meditate for 2 hours.
Rock hard.
Rock.
Yeah. I mean, Obermallow's entire strategy, his like long-term strategy here, can basically be boiled down to he is going to introduce lifestyle creep so that he can yank it away later as a means of control. It's brilliant.
It's so insidious. So, as part of all this, he's shown to their steel foundries, and during a demonstration, he sees what he's been looking for this whole time, which is kind of a hint as to where maybe influence is coming from. And it is in the Commodore's bodyguard. They carry weapons that are atomics. And these atomic weapons have the sign of the old empire.
Oh my God.
You thought it was gone. Over 100-something years later, it's still putting around somewhere.
Yeah, so cool. A mic drop moment for sure.
So good. Yeah.
Now, this sets off a series of events for Mallow because he needs to investigate this further. The old empire creeping all the way out here into the periphery?
What the fuck?
Working with the Corellian Empire?
South Dakota? The old empire here in South Dakota?
Crazy. Eristor out here? Why?
Yeah.
It's insane. So Mallow.
Taylor Swift is the emperor.
I feel like many would agree. Mallow sets out on a secret mission to get to the heart of this. Where is the Empire's foothold in the periphery out here?
Yeah.
And he meets with a former Imperial patrician named Onumbar on the planet Siwenna.
Love him. Love this guy.
Onumbar is so cool.
So great.
And they actually, I will say, in the Foundation TV show, I feel like they certainly did him dirty because he's nothing like he is in the book, but they made him pretty badass. So they stayed true to the core of Onumbar being like a cool, badass guy.
Oh, yeah.
So in his conversation with Onumbar, Mallow basically gets the download. Barr explains the political situation on Siwenna to Mallow. He, in particular, reveals that Siwenna does indeed have atomic power, old Imperial atomic power that's left over. But literally, no one knows how to actually make it work.
Yeah.
Someone hundreds of years ago flipped the on switch, and it's just been working since. So, this sets off stage 2 of Mallow's plan. He visits one of these generators himself, one of these nuclear generators from the old Empire, and he sweet talks this like really childish and annoying tech man who is in charge of these generators. Basically, like, we're told that on Siwenna, the tech men are just like this class of people who have taken it upon themselves to maintain and care for these nuclear plants. But as Mallow will learn in this conversation, they have no fucking clue what they're doing, basically. And they are in awe of things like his personal body shield, or the fact that he has nuclear power that's as small as, like, I forget what it was, like the size of an apple or the size of
or like a walnut, right?
A walnut, yeah. They're blown away by that because they're getting nuclear power from this enormous generator.
Right.
And by the end of this section, like Mallow has a full picture of what's going on. He understands the Empire has sort of infiltrated into the periphery, has brought some of their tech with them, but no one even knows how to handle this tech anymore, and it is falling well behind where Foundation is at.
Yeah, and it's vulnerable. Like he was pointing out, like, if you just, like, I don't know, took out that gasket over there, you'd be fucked.
Right, exactly.
And the tech man's like, well, no one to do that. It's like, okay.
Well, watch me. I also, very small note here that we learned later in the courtroom scene, love that he gave him a dud of a shield that just like was going to stop working after a week. Hilarious.
Yeah. A week later, he's like, why isn't it fucking working? It's like, it's a disposable.
Right. A week later, he's like in the bar with his bros and he's like, punch me, bro. Punch me. Punch me. Nothing's going to happen.
Ow.
Ow. What the fuck? Oh. Gets his lights knocked out.
Well, this jumps us forward a year.
Yes.
And Mallow is fucking crazy wealthy. He's in a palace and he's carving this expensive path through the upper echelons of Foundation Society with clear ambitions to hold office himself. He's like, yeah, fuck it. I'll be mayor. I'll be mayor of all of Foundation. Hell yeah.
Incredible.
And Sut confronts him. I also want to point out, how are we feeling on Mallow and his friend, Giles? They're clearly a couple, right? They're fucking.
Oh, are they?
Anchor Giles and Mallow. I want to paint the picture for you, Abu, because this happens in the chapter, and I was like, oh my god, because
yeah. Okay, walk me through this.
Mallow's laying naked with Giles.
Right.
Naked as the day he was born. He's stretching. We get a description of his muscles tight and everything like that.
Yeah.
Giles puts a cigar in his mouth. They are smoking after sex, for sure. Puts a cigar in his mouth.
Whoa.
Lights one up himself.
Whoa.
And then Mallow's like, oh shit, yeah, Sut's coming. Hey, I want you in the other room. Listen. And he kicks him with his bare foot out of the room, kind of shoos him the way you'd shoo a lover into another room.
Wow.
Slips on a robe. I'm like, come on, guys. I think he's at least a bisexual king because he's fucking Giles for sure.
This is incredible. This completely went over my head. Not something I picked up on at all. In this scene, I just imagined this was like a Well, I guess they're in his mansion, right? I was like, oh, they're in like
like a sauna or like
the sauna
yeah.
together. You know, it's just like dudes being bros in a sauna together. It's fine.
Yeah.
But
no, they're chilling in his like living room.
Yeah. Wow.
And Giles like here puts a cigar in his mouth. I was like,
right.
And again, I looked this up because I was like, I can't be the only one. And sure enough, there's some chatter online about it and discussions and stuff. And people were saying, hey, if they're genders, if it was like a guy and a girl, and you find out guy's naked and the girl puts a cigar in his mouth. This would be a
sexually charged scene.
Very clearly, yeah.
Yeah.
And
interesting.
It was really cool. I was like, hell yeah, fucking 1941. Hell yeah.
Incredible.
Super cool.
Okay, cool.
Again, not highlighted, not dwelled upon. Anyway, Sut confronts him. Sut's like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, you didn't give me a full report of everything that happened there. He's like, yeah, I also didn't tell you how often I showered. Like, what do you want from me?
Yep.
And Sut actually puts him on trial for giving up the Foundation missionary to the Corellian mob during his mission.
Yep.
Which, to my astounding delight, means we get another courtroom scene. Woo!
This court is in session, folks.
Oh, this court is in session. But again, you keep fucking up. You're putting the sweet talker, smart 5D idiots. Chess dude in court, putting him on stage, public trial. Terrible way to approach this problem. So he wins the case. He shows us this brilliant, incredible thing, as much for us as for the public. He demonstrates for the judges as well that Twir, inside man the whole fucking time.
Holy shit.
This guy who was like, he's like, oh, you say you used to be a traitor? No records of you in the trading books. And I met you only a year ago at this thing.
Yep.
He was a guy on like Sut's payroll. Second crazy fucking thing, you know that missionary? Not even a fucking missionary.
Incredible. What?
He was Corellian secret police. He's a secret policeman. And it's like, oh yeah, fucking course he was.
Yeah. A test all along. And really fun to see all the chess pieces that Hober put in place all the way back then, right? He set up a secret camera. He got Twir out of the room so he could have one-on-one time with the missionary. He even set up like a ultraviolet light, which showed the secret tattoo for the secret police that the guy had on his wrist or arm or whatever.
So fucking cool.
Just prepping everything in case, right? Because back then, again, he's kind of winging this on the fly. He knows something is up, but he doesn't know what is up.
Yeah.
So he's like getting all of these dominoes in a row on the fly. Yeah. Brilliant stuff.
I loved also the moment where Twir is like doesn't know about Seldon crises.
Yes.
And Hober locks onto that and doesn't say anything about it then, but is like, okay. And he points out in this courtroom scene, he's like, you cannot tell me that a traitor of the Foundation doesn't know about Harry Seldon crises. Inconceivable. Insane. So I knew he was full of shit. Incredible. And just like us, the public, the Foundation, the citizens of Foundation, eat this shit up.
Hell yeah.
Just like me, they leapt to their feet, cheering and screaming, Mallow, Mallow, Mallow. Super. And he becomes mayor.
Incredible.
Fucking wild. Just checkmate.
Arrest Sut for fun too along the way.
Yeah, do it. I'm going to go back to fucking my buddy. Peace out, bitches. Hober Mallow, out. So good.
Somebody put a cigar in my mouth. Why is there not a cigar in my mouth right now?
It's so good. Oh my God. And that basically leads us to the final moments of the book, right? Where they are facing another Seldon crisis, a war against the Corellians, backed by the old empire. But Mallow has made his plan very clear. And we know he's set his Rube Goldberg society crumbling machine up already.
Amazing.
Which is, he's going to do nothing. And in a few years, their society is going to begin to crumble. They'll be miserable. They're going to lose. And I guess that's what happens. Like, that's what it says, I guess, at the end. And the crisis is averted. The economic dominance is established.
Yep.
Mission accomplished once again, baby.
Amazing. Amazing.
So good.
Wow. Okay. that is our summary of the second half of the book.
Woo!
An incredible journey with some master traders and sweet talkers. Let's take another breather, but don't go anywhere, folks, because when we come back, we're getting into some themes and takeaways and deeper discussions of Foundation. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed your break. Let's talk about some thematic takeaways from this incredible book. Before we do, Abu, you've read this book before. You're a big fan. How was it rereading the book, top to bottom?
As fun as it always is. This is maybe my third or fourth reread of the book, and I had a blast.
Yeah.
Again, I always seem to forget parts of the book when I revisit it, so things like Hober Mallow's reveal in the courtroom scene always hit just as hard as they did the first time I read it. You know, there's always enough of a gap between rereads that I forget enough stuff for it all to be very surprising and great once again. So I had a blast, of course, and I haven't been shy about my love of Foundation and this whole series and Asimov's work. So a joy to be able to revisit it and to get to dive deep with you on the show. I will say, on this reread in particular, I've always kind of felt this about Foundation, but on this reread in particular, it's clear to me that the second half of the book is a much weaker part. The first half is so strong, full of so many compelling characters and ideas and moments and twists, that the latter half kind of suffers the same thing that Laimar Panyet suffers, of living in the shadow of giants. The second half kind of lives in the shadow of how amazing and, pun intended, foundational the first half of the book is. I do have a hard time swallowing, for example, some like really convenient leaps of storytelling. Mallow meeting Onum Bar and just learning everything that he needs to know for his master plan to come together.
Good thing I found this man who knows everything and is happy to tell me and not turn me over to authorities and not fuck everything up.
You know, like, how did we end up on Siwenna? We've never heard of Siwenna before. How did we end up with Onum Bar? What's going on here?
He does explain that because he's looking at an old Imperial map, and that Siwenna was originally so they gave some explanations, but it's still, there are so many ways. If you, as the listener right now, imagine the number of ways that could have gone terribly wrong. Like if he had stumbled upon the tech man first with no context, that could have fucked up the whole plan, basically.
Certainly.
Yeah.
So that's a weak point, I think, for the second half of the book. And there are less dramatically cool ideas, right? Like psychohistory is a thing we're introduced to in the first half of this book, mind-blowing stuff. In the second half, it's more economic theory, I guess, which is a bit drier, you might say. But of course, it's still incredible stuff with really amazing characters and a fun tale. So that's really just the most minor of nitpicks. The first half is just so good.
Yeah.
What about you, though? This is your first read through. So now that you've completed the book cover to cover, where does it land for you? How does it land?
I will say, I think because the first chunk of the book is marred by the unfamiliarity with Asimov's storytelling.
Yeah.
The second half was such a fun time for me. It's almost an inverse takeaway because, like, I completely hear what you're saying and I completely agree that, like, psychohistory and the characters of Harry Seldon and then Salvo Hardin being the incredible character he is and the amount of time we get with him is just is awesome. So generally, I think I really enjoyed the second half more than the first half.
Yeah.
I also really like the idea, and we'll talk about this, but the seeing the levers shift as a necessity because of what has happened. And also we are seeing the desire for complacency. We're seeing the desire for stagnation in weak-minded men, right?
Yep.
And I think that's one of my favorite things about the book is it's showing you these literally era-long patterns of humanity emerging from these really fun, colorful characters.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just very, very, it's just so good. I mean, I think 10 out of 10, the book's a fucking masterpiece.
Amazing.
I'm so...
It warms my heart to hear how much you loved it.
4 out of 10. It was fine. It was almost as good as Sisterhood of Dune by Brian Herbert. So anyway, I fucking loved it. Thank you, patrons, for voting for it sincerely. And I can't wait to read the other books. I will wait because I've got a bunch of Dune shit to read. But excellent book, top to bottom.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, let's get into our takeaways and analysis then.
Let's do it.
You already hinted a bit at our first takeaway.
Yeah.
Religion to economics. That transition that we see happen over the course of the second half of this book is so interesting to consider in the larger context of empires, human nature, the forces of religion and economics at play. It's very obvious that scientism, the thing that Hardin established in the first half of the book, is no longer the powerhouse it once was.
Right.
And with the changing times, it is up to the people of the Foundation to change the levers of power that they are using now, right? To influence humanity's course along Selden's path.
Right.
They naturally must evolve. They can't rely on the first thing they thought of for the rest of their time. Now, the transition is set up quite well. It's interesting to hear that originally the publications were switched because it makes so much sense the way it is in the book now. And I'm sure there were some edits along the way to smooth over some bumps.
Yeah, I think that's the huge part of it is they made changes, or Asimov made enough changes that it feels appropriate.
Yeah, but it's a very smooth transition in the storytelling. Hardin sets up this like strategy of pure religion and scientism. And then we get to Panyetz, who juggles a bit of both, right?
Yeah.
He's a master trader, he's a smooth talker, he's a businessman, he cuts an incredible deal, but he leverages the religious tendencies of the Grand Master and the people of Askane against them, basically. Right. He twists that against them. And then we see that transition fully completed in part 5 with Mallow, who's like, money is my religion. He's Look like, how hard I am.
Fuck religion. Yeah, I hate
exactly.
that shit.
Exactly. So we kind of see this very smooth transition over from one type of power to another. And along the way, we get plenty of examples of why something like scientism is beginning to fall short, right? The limits that it's starting to come up against. And in particular, we see it in Askane first, but then later in the Corellian Empire, it's up against not only competing ideologies, like Askane has its own version of the religion, and thus the Foundation version can't get a foothold.
Right.
But it's also up against just general skepticism of Foundation, right?
Yeah.
How holy is Foundation at this point, right? Like,
and the battles
look
they've
what they
won,
did to Askane.
Exactly. The battles they've won and lost are part of the public record, which also changes the nature of the battle moving forward.
Exactly.
You can't pull the same trick 100 times across 100 years. Maybe you can pull it 100 times all at once, like scientism and Hardin. Right. But once you've done that, it's a defensive mechanism now. You can't use it to ever expand. And I love what you just pointed out, that even the ancestor worship of Askane is an offshoot of scientism.
Yep.
And you can't proselytize to other people who've already diverted from your like religious base. You no longer have that power. It's like Catholics going to Protestants. Have you heard about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? Protestants are like, yeah, yes,
yeah, bro,
yeah, and we don't agree. Like, I don't know. What are you doing here? Exactly.
Yeah. Once you kind of get to that schism level of like disagreement, it's very difficult to make those conversions happen, and then obviously it's very difficult then for Foundation to exert any sort of control, and certainly not the type of control that Hardin was able to exert on the Four Kingdoms. Now, of course, Mallow understands all of this, and he knows that economics is the new tool for expansion and control for the Foundation. Because ultimately, exchange of resources, toasters that make perfectly good toast every single time, that's universal.
With the
Everybody
face of Harry
wants
Seldon
that
on every piece of toast. It's miraculous, some would say.
And Mallow would say, it's just business, baby.
As money is my religion.
That is a universal want. You know, everybody wants a great toaster. And Mallow's like, this is how we now exert our influence. And he himself, what I loved about his character is that he understands this implicitly because of his background.
Yeah.
He is a master trader. He has made a career of this. He understands commerce and the exchange of goods.
Right.
But he is also, and this is pointed out all throughout the chapter, people are like super racist against him.
Yeah, it sucks.
For being Smyrnian.
Yeah.
He's not like true, like blue-blooded, born on Foundation. He comes from one of the 4 kingdoms that were eventually roped into Foundation's influence. And thus we kind of see this distrust. And he understands, I like that religion, the skepticism, all of that he experiences is what others in the galaxy feel as well about Foundation. And ultimately, by the end of his, 5D chess game that he ends up winning, he knows that he can't be beat anymore. He has outplayed any religious moves against him, which Sut is still on about. Sut like started this fucking club, the religionists party, and Sut is trying to whatever. And Mallow's not even worried about it because anything Sut does, he can literally just like squeeze the lifeblood out of. I loved this quote near the end of the story here. Quote, "And there isn't a factory, not a trading center, not a shipping line that isn't under my control that I couldn't squeeze to nothing if Sut attempts revolutionary propaganda. Where his propaganda succeeds, or even where it looks as though it might succeed, I will make certain that prosperity dies. Where it fails, prosperity will continue because my factories will remain fully staffed." End quote.
God damn. God damn.
Oh, Hober Mallow.
Giles like, that's my man. That's my man right there.
Man, I'm gonna fuck him later.
That's so solid. I mean, it really is very much colors of he who can control a thing, or he who has control of the thing can has the means of destroying.
Absolutely.
No, whoever can destroy a thing has whatever. The true fuck it. That quote.
Right. Paul Spice.
Yeah, Paul Spice. Insert
right.
words.
We're
here.
all Dune fans. We've been there. We know. We
know
get
what
you,
I'm
Leo.
saying. And ultimately, kind of to wrap this point up, all of this ties back to the larger warning that this book and Dune are so quick to remind us.
Yep.
Stagnation and complacency, attempting to use yesterday's strategy for tomorrow's problem, is not the way to do things. Right?
Beautifully said. Yeah.
That is a surefire way to fail eventually. Relying on tradition will not save you.
Yep.
And even Mallow understands that his levers of economic power will eventually fail to be the kind of silver bullet they need to be, right? Or that they are now. But he understands, eventually economics will not work. But fun fact, not my fucking problem.
Incredible
I'll
take.
be dead. And I love this. He's done his part of the job. The upcoming crisis are up to future leaders to overcome. Quote, "What business of mine is the future? No doubt Selden has foreseen it and prepared against it. There will be other crises in the time to come when money power has become as dead a force as religion is now. Let my successors solve those new problems as I have solved the one of today." End quote.
Wow. Mic drop, Jail, come here.
Jail, come here.
Wow.
Give me another cigar, Jail. I'm on fire. This is sick. Yeah, it's such a good. It's also very similar to Salvo Hardin, just being like, there will be another Harry Seldon message, probably.
Yeah.
Not anytime I'm alive. What's up? Peace.
Exactly. Right. This I actually did really like because throughout the story, you do run the risk of just thinking like Hober Mallow is just a really brilliant con artist, right?
Mm.
And that he's maybe using the crisis as his own way to become mayor and gain power and wealth.
Sure.
This, at the end of the chapter, his like understanding of the larger Selden plan, his implicit understanding of how power and imperial waves kind of come and go. This, I think, shows us that Obermallow is much more than meets the eye. He's not just a smooth talking, charming fuckboy of a rich master trader,
Yeah.
He is as brilliant, as the book tells us at the end, as brilliant as someone like Harry Seldon or Salvor Hardin.
Yeah. He has his own brand of brilliance, but he's no less brilliant for it.
Yeah.
This actually transitions us really well into our second takeaway, because we're going to talk about Harry Seldon crises.
Yes.
And how they've kind of come to play a role in Foundation society and the politics of the periphery and these kind of outer planets.
Yep.
And it's worth noting that while most people do seem to get a kind of lay education and they're told about Harry Seldon, but Seldon crises are kept as a more closely guarded piece of information.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, on Foundation, they've become the boy who cries wolf all the goddamn time, it seems.
Totally.
So it's just kind of become a thing that people, cry out about. But I want to really draw in, as we kind of look back on that last takeaway, I think you're right. Homer Mallow is brilliant, and he understands, very similar to Salvo Hardin, he understands the nature of the battle that psychohistory has to fight. And this is the quote that I think really highlights this. Quote, "Seldon crises are not solved by individuals, but by historic forces. Harry Seldon, when he planned our course of future history, did not count on brilliant heroics, but on the broad sweeps of economics and sociology." End quote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So good. So fucking cool.
So good.
It's not charismatic leaders who are going to save society. It's these sweeping forces. And yes, sometimes it's the one person who catalyzes some movement towards a thing. Again, all of this was catalyzed by Harry Seldon and his 100,000 people.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's those people who understand those sweeping powers and know how to kind of nudge them in the right direction. Those are the ones that are working to successfully guide humanity toward this new empire.
Yeah. And what's kind of, on a larger level, what's kind of interesting is that the true Seldon, the true path along the Seldon crisis is deeply unpopular. Like, Mallow has to be like, we're not fighting this war. Sorry, everybody who literally wants to fight this war.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, someone like Sut running on a mayoralty campaign, doing the populist thing, is actually literally antithesis to the plan. It takes someone like Mallow to wrest control from these people and do the deeply unpopular thing for humanity to get back on the plan and survive the next crisis.
Little bit like Leto 2. Unpopular,
Hello.
tyrannical, stagnation,
Hello.
intentional stagnation. We're not the action party who would have attacked. They're not doing it the right way. Yeah, it's super interesting. The way that the crises began as these really existential things, and then how they're sort of invoked so often and almost loses its meaning, but that they still do exist in the sort of psychohistoric future history, as it's called.
The plan continues. Yeah.
The plan continues. And I also loved, that they are very intentional about who even gets told about the crises, who is educated about these.
This was so interesting. Yeah. Almost a throwaway line,
right? Quote, "That was for the inhabitants of Terminus itself. The men of the outer planets could hear only censored versions that would suit the requirements of religion.
Ooh.
They would hear nothing of Seldon crises." End quote.
Wow. During the courtroom scene.
Which is nuts. It's like, okay, Salvor Hardin, in deciding about propagating information about Terminus into these new places that are under the control of Terminus, he knew that minimizing the number of people told about the full depth of Harry Seldon's plan is another important part of letting it work.
Yep. It's brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me think of Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars. It's almost the prophecy dilemma, right? If too many people know about the Seldon crises and the details of the plan, you risk derailing the plan. Salvor Hardin made that clear to us in the first half of the book.
Yeah.
So to censor it in this way, only Foundationers hear the truth about the crises and are taught the truth about the crises. Everyone else is just given religious propaganda.
Right.
that's hardened strategy 101, you know?
Yeah.
Because you run the risk of that prophecy dilemma. If you are Anakin, you're told a prophecy and you see the future, you risk either accidentally making the worst outcome or the outcome you are trying to avoid happen, or you risk derailing it in some way simply because you have knowledge now of the plan. So, really interesting take on sort of psychohistory and how to avoid these crises. It also sort of speaks to the sort of distortion and dilution of scientism itself, though, right?
Mhm.
Like, as time has passed, this is kind of a double-edged sword, because if you're doing so much propaganda and so much manipulation, you lose the like core heart of the message.
Yeah.
And you also begin to lose people's understanding of the plan and like true understanding of scientism.
Right.
So it's kind of this catch-22. If they know too much, it ruins the plan. If they know too little, religion stops being a power that we can influence them with.
Yeah.
And that's exactly sort of the opening where Hober Mallow comes in. And it's like, well, economic is another power that we can control them with.
They also become their own enemies. I mean, they're fending off Asconi, where they're like, having to send people potentially to their death.
Yeah.
Because of this offshoot of scientism. And it's like, this is what happens. I mean, you've demonstrated that this religion is true, but like you haven't protected it against evolving into something unrecognizable.
Yeah. Really cool stuff.
Super interesting.
Okay, for our third takeaway, we wanted to circle back and return to our roots a little bit.
Yeah.
For our final takeaway, and to wrap up our discussion of this book, we want to take a couple of beats here to appreciate some of the thematic overlaps between this little diversion we've taken into Foundation and the core Dune books that we have covered, obviously, in depth for years on this show.
Right. And to start off, I wanted to share something that really struck me as I was finishing this book for the first time. Something that really kind of stuck in my head, and I wanted to just talk about it for a second, is the difference in the way that Asimov and Frank wrote their protagonists and their heroes.
Yeah.
Because characters like Hober Mallow and Salvor Hardin and Linmar Ponyetz are so fun and charismatic, and they're always doing the right thing. You've called this out a couple of times. They almost have that like convenience armor where they always know the coolest thing to say and the right place to go. It's that sort of like, okay, I know Sherlock Holmes is really fucking smart, but could he really do that?
Exactly.
It almost defies reason enough to almost break the suspension of disbelief. I'm reading a book about, 50,000 years in the future. But like, let's take a step back and look at like whenever Frank introduces a charismatic character, he often does it with one hand out in front, as a hearty handshake, and the other one behind his back holding a poison dagger. He's like, here's Paul Muad'Dib, a character you get to meet the whole book. By the way, he made drums out of the skins of his enemies.
LOL.
He killed 61 billion people. And you're like, whoa, God.
Wait, what, this guy?
This guy is morally gray. And then you read Messiah and he's like, he has no agency the whole time. He's tragic. You're like, wow, I don't like this character anymore. Like, you've done it. You've given me and that, again, this was a very near and dear important thing to Frank's heart as a writer. He often talked about how, he said Nixon was his favorite president because he taught people not to trust leaders.
Not to trust the government. Right.
And he was like, JFK, or the charismatic leaders were dangerous because people would just go along with them no matter what they said.
Yep.
It's so funny because it's so clear that is a very important part of the story for Frank. He wrote good guys who you were told actively to be suspicious of them. Versus in Foundation, I found myself rooting for the good guys and being rewarded for it constantly.
Oh, yeah.
And then the annoying shitty people show up and you go, I'm annoyed at this shitty person. And then you arrest them and they get arrested. And it's a reward. You just get rewarded for being like, I like the likable people and I don't like the dislikable people. So in that way, it feels in some ways a little bit more Surface level, I don't know. A little bit more straightforward, a little bit less challenging.
Shallow, certainly.
Yeah, I don't want to use the word shallow because it feels like such a derisive term, but
right,
and I don't
right.
mean it this way. I just think they had very different goals as authors.
And to be fair, like Ober and Salvor are tyrants. They both like literally conduct coups to take over the government of Terminus in their own ways. And they are both doing things that are unpopular, right? They have detractors who are working against them.
Yeah.
But clearly they're in the right.
Yes.
You know, there's the messaging in the book is that they are in the right and we should be cheering for them. Frank likes to muddy that message a lot.
Totally.
You know, you and I discussed on the God Emperor book club so many times, like, could Leto have been nicer about? Was there a better way for him to do this? Why is he such a dick?
Yeah, why is he an asshole? Is that part of the golden path, Leto?
And there's certainly no moment in Foundation where you're wondering why Salvor Hardin is being such a dick. Because you're like, yeah, hell yeah, get him, Hardin, pow pow. Like these are like cool cowboys, smooth talkers, and you just love to love them.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like it's tough to say like, oh, this is shallow or less complex or whatever, because I don't think it was Asimov's intention to begin with to warn us about these people, right? The story is so much about the plan and Harry Seldon and less about these fun characters along the way that shepherd it forward. But it's a really great point that Frank took the same charismatic leader idea and added his own layer of like Nixonian distrust to it.
Yes. And again, it's not Salvor Hardin with his sword dismantling the Empire. It's him understanding societal forces and wielding them in the correct way at the correct time to follow Harry Seldon's plan. So again,
Frank would never write a chapter where Paul Atreides gets up on someone's shoulder and everyone's screaming, Atreides, Atreides, Atreides.
Just rewarding you wholesale. Yeah. I think that's where I'll wrap up this point that I wanted to make, is just that while Foundation and Dune have that kind of similar thrust, the difference I wanted to highlight is just that Asimov clearly was not his intention to warn you about these individuals. And oftentimes his sort of little crises fall on the shoulders of super lovable characters who are so much fun to root for. And one of whom is probably fucking his best friend. So
that's right.
10 out of 10. Great book.
Fun is that it does get a little more complex in the sequel books. Cool. It gets less like the heroes are being heroes.
Yeah.
And Asimov's adds some morally gray stuff in the sequel books, which is fun.
Yeah.
Some other similarities that we wanted to rattle off very quickly. We've touched on a lot of these actually over the course of this mini book club on Foundation. But one similarity we have, of course, is the fall of an ancient empire, Galactic Empire on Trantor. Meet Galactic Empire of House Carino. Shake hands. Both of you go away.
And now you're both exiled. Great.
There's also, of course, we talked about this at length in the last episode, religion as a means of control. Paul, Leto, the Bene Gesserit, Missionaria Protectiva, all of those things. We see Salvor Hardin and scientism wield many of the same tools as a lever of power. And then another thematic similarity between the books is this adaptability being the key to survival. This warning against stagnation and complacency is so critical to both of these stories and is a warning that's present in both of them. And humanity's literal fate demands that you change with the times and that you accept some level of uncertainty and chaos.
Yeah. We've talked about like Paul made the mistake of looking too closely at one particular future, which kind of locked that future into place. Versus Leto understood the way to find the golden path is to rule out all of the futures he was aware of that led to death and destruction, allowing the only remaining one to be the golden path, which we see in the desert during Children of Dune. So this idea of Leto's kind of winging it, but he's winging it very intentionally in the one direction he can kind of sense is where humanity doesn't go extinct.
Right.
So it's cool. I mean, that's a very Hober Mallow thing. It's like, what's your plan, Leto? And he's like, I'll become a worm and then we'll fucking see, you know, right. I'm going to get a lot of Duncans and we'll figure it out. Can you tell us exactly what's going to, nope.
Nope. And in fact,
buddy.
I shouldn't. Buddy. Right. I don't know the meaning of the word insubordination. If anyone's trying to define it,
I'll fucking tackle you.
Meet my lays gun.
Pokemon tackle. So those are our similarities. Some differences we wanted to rattle off. Individuals versus collective. Dune really kind of follows Paul and then Paul's kids. The only consistent thing in Foundation is Harry Seldon's plan.
Yeah.
The individuals, they are fun. The colorful, heroic characters, they're fun. They are less important than the 1,000-year plan. It's not about the meat bags. It's about the plan. Ecology. Ecology is something that Dune focuses on deeply, and Foundation just doesn't. It is interesting to think about an ecosystem, though, as one of those hard-to-shift environments or hard-to-shift mechanisms that Harry Seldon describes in the private hearing in the first part of the book.
Yeah.
Like, a single person can't save the ecosystem. You need 100,000 people, a million people. You need enough people and a serious enough urgency to fix that problem. So it's very fun to see that as something that probably Asimov had some great thoughts on. He just didn't choose to focus on it in Foundation.
Yeah.
And then finally, the stakes are a little bit different. And I again, this is where Frank benefits from Foundation coming first. Harry Seldon is trying to reduce human suffering by, 29,000 years? It's like 30,000 years of darkness versus just 1,000 in bloodshed and chaos. Leto 2 saves humanity and is like, period. And is like, and I need to again, because humanity could go extinct in all these different ways. There is one way all of humanity doesn't go extinct, and it's the golden path. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
I would say that Asimov, I don't even get the sense that Asimov thinks that humanity could go extinct based on the widespread empire he describes.
Yeah.
Versus Frank outlines a few ways that every human from the entire galaxy would be dead. Not a single living person anywhere.
Yeah. Great point. It's just a different level of stakes, and Frank really took it up a notch.
Yeah.
Okay, to wrap up today's episode, such a great book, such a great discussion. You had a really fun question to cap off the episode today. We saw a lot of really cool tech over the course of this book.
Indeed we did, yeah.
So, Leo, if you could take one of those pieces of technology and bring it into the real world to use yourself, what would it be?
Cigars. Hover Mallow cigars. No.
But aren't they like vegan cigars or something, you know?
Oh, yeah.
They seem like healthier cigars.
Or something, because there's like vegan tobacco.
I don't know what vegan cigars are. Is that a real thing? I'm not sure.
I don't know, man.
Anyway, cigars, yeah.
No, there is a lot of really cool tech. And I'm sure if I like really looked through it, I'm sure I would find more things that I want. I think at the end of the day, though, I owe it to my fellow man. I owe it to humanity to bring the miniature nuclear reactors that Foundation is using at the time of Hover Mallow into our real world.
Right.
Like, Asimov doesn't get into specifics, right? He doesn't go into how a walnut-sized nuclear reactor works.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it exists, I imagine it would be pretty revolutionary for our society, and I feel like we kind of need something like that for the whole climate crisis, something that's like clean and really small and super powerful.
Yeah.
I'm sure if I brought it to some high-end physics lab, they could use the knowledge to get us away from fossil fuels, and I'm sure that would help out humanity quite a bit. And we could finally have fucking smartphones that have like the battery life of, flip phones, where
oh my goodness,
you have the flip phone in your closet for 3.5 years and it's still at 72%. It was on the whole time. Recording video, still at 72%. How? Insane.
Insane. Yes. Yeah, my Apple Watch could last more than half a fucking day,
Could last 2 days. Apple.
Incredible. So that's a good pick. I like that.
It's sort of boring in the like, it's not fun, but I think it would probably help out quite a bit.
Yeah.
What about you? What piece of tech called your name?
I will respond with what I wrote in the script, but in real time now, I'm second guessing myself because your technology that you're bringing into the real world is such a positive force for humanity.
Sure.
Mine has the potential to be catastrophic. But here's what I wrote. I wrote the body shields.
Oh, yeah.
The incredible body shields that the Foundationers have would be so cool. Like, can you imagine walking around without a care in the world, right? You're walking around New York, you cross a New York City street without the crippling fear of immediate death?
Yeah.
The freedom that would bring to, personally, my days would be absolutely incredible. It's such a cool piece of tech, of course. Frank obviously had a similar thing in his stories as well. A lot of science fiction will have these body shields that are super resistant to a lot of things.
Yeah.
It does raise the question, like, how resistant exactly is the body shields that the Foundations have? We know that Salvor Hardin takes like a literal gunshot at close range and brushes it off.
Yeah.
So they seem powerful.
I think he would survive
they could keep
like a Grubhub bicyclist tearing down the sidewalk.
That exactly where I was going. You know, what's the scale of New York City street danger that a Foundation shield can protect you from? Like a Grubhub bicyclist? Totally. They're going to bounce right off.
They get absorbed into the shield. The shield glows a bit. They're gone. You're
right.
So,
they disappear.
Shit.
They're in the fucking like Ant-Man, like Quantumania realm. But I do wonder if it could protect you from like a runaway fucking
like 18-wheeler or something.
Yeah, you know, who knows? Obviously, as you said, Asimov doesn't get into the specifics of this technology. I think it would be cool and fun. The thing that makes me second guess it is that this would utterly change warfare, probably for the worse. And that would probably be a bad thing for humanity if this got into the military industrial complex. But that would be my pick, the body shields from Foundation, because they're so cool.
Very good choice. I think that's awesome. Yeah. Well, folks, before we let you go, we want to remind you of some ways that you can support the show and keep in touch with us. And the two best ways to support us, first is to become a patron. And second is to get yourself some Dune-themed swag from our merch store. Of course, our links are in the show notes. You can find those there. Mm-hmm. The Patreon especially, best way to support us. And you can vote for episodes like this. So if you liked us talking about Foundation, we will almost certainly talk about some other non-Dune sci-fi books at some point. And if you want us to talk about your favorite, make sure to become a patron and to look out for those voting opportunities.
That's right. Now, of course, we love to hear from you. So email us. gomjabarpodcast@gmail.com is the place, has always been the place. Send us your thoughts. Send us your questions. Send us cute pictures of your pets. Yeah. Many of you are getting real smart about that, where the subject line just says cute pet picture inside, and that shit always gets me.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to open that email without a second thought, spam or no. So, gomjabarpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts, not only about Dune, of course, but also about these episodes that we did today. Totally. Foundation. What did you think? Are you as big an Asimov fan as we are? And do you like Foundation? And where does it sort of fit in your Dune fandom? Because I think Foundation, for me, fits neatly within that sci-fi world. That they kind of go hand in hand in many ways, like we discussed today. So let us know your thoughts. Email us. We love to hear from you. And we'll get back to you eventually.
Within 2 calendar years. That's the Gom Jabbar promise. I promise, by the time another protagonist is introduced, we will have we'll have responded to you.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to start pulling Foundations on this show, and the hosts will just switch up on you.
Yeah. But the through line, the great content, the fun conversations, that'll never change, baby.
The plan. The podcast never changes. But your charismatic hosts, maybe they do.
Well, friends, there is no real ending. It's just the place where you stop the recording. But this podcast is always one step beyond logic. So help spread the word of Muad'Dib and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And be sure to check out the other shows on the Lore Party Podcast Network on loreparty.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at @lore_party. We're also on TikTok at Gomjabar Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, whoever controls the podcast controls the universe. We'll see you on the golden path.